Gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Russell, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Strzok, you stated today, quote, "I do not think that bias was expressed in those text messages," end quote. Inspector General Horowitz stated in his report that those derogatory texts were, quote, "not only indicative of a biased state of mind," end quote, but were also, quote, "antithetical to the core values of the FBI and the Department of Justice," end quote. He stated further that such actions implicated, quote, "provisions in the FBI's offensive code and penalty guidelines," end quote, and referred information to the FBI for adjudication, which is still outstanding. You stated today, quote, "at no time did personal beliefs enter into decisions I made," end quote. Yet Mr. Horowitz's report stated, quote, "in assessing Strzok's decision to prioritize the Russian investigation over following up on the mid-year related investigative lead discovered on the Wiener laptop in October 2016, these text messages led us to conclude that we did not have confidence that Strzok's decision was free from bias," end quote. You stated today that culture, training, and policy prevent bias in the FBI. They would be noted and stopped. The Justice Department ethical guidelines state the following, quote, "superiors may never send to subordinate employees an email directed at the success or failure of a political party, partisan political group, or partisan candidate," end quote. Another one, quote, "express opinions about the candidates and issues if the expression is political activity directed at the success or failure of a political party, candidate, or partisan political office or partisan political group. The expression is not permitted while the employee is on duty," end quote. The FBI Domestic Investigations and Operation Guide in Section 3.1, because we've heard so much about the adherence of policies and what these things do, that's why it's important to quote them, and I quote in Section 3.1, "we who enforce the law must not merely obey it," this is the FBI guideline, "we have an obligation to set a moral example that those whom we protect can follow. Because the FBI's success in accomplishing its mission is directly related to the support and cooperation of those we protect, these core values are the fiber that holds together the vitality of our institution," end quote. Mr. Strzok, given the extramarital relationship and types of derogatory communication officially exchanged with FBI counsel Lisa Page, as laid out in the IG report, did these actions exhibit a, quote, "moral example that those whom the FBI protects can follow," end quote?
Sir, thanks for your question. I noticed your CIB, and I want to thank you for your service.
I've had decades of it myself.
Yes, sir. I would tell you I am not proud. I am ashamed.
Did the policies guide your behavior for these actions?
Sir, for the bulk of my professional actions, every day of my life, they did.
But
for
you
every
stated
investigative
that these
decision,
actions
I did.
Had no bias, and yet we heard from Mr. Horowitz's IG report that they concluded that there was. And now we see an extramarital relationship and types of derogatory communications officially exchanged. That does not appear to exhibit the actions that would exhibit a moral example for those whom the FBI protects. Do you believe it does?
Sir, I would respond
yes
this
or no?
way. I disagree profoundly with the Inspector
with the
General's
FBI guidelines.
Bias.
Okay, thank you for that. In Section 3.1.1, and I quote, "in general, the FBI requires employees to report known or suspected failures to adhere to the law, rules, or regulations by themselves or other employees to any supervisor in the employee's chain of command," end quote. You knew your conduct was wrong, not only in the use of Texas, the forwarding of political emails, the forwarding of links, all of that is laid out in the guidelines.
None of that is wrong, sir. None of that is wrong.
And also that the extramarital relationship could place you outside of what would be proper for an FBI agent. So my question is, did you make any attempt to report your conduct to the chain of command?
Sir,
yes or
my
no?
conduct in the context
Did you
of the
make any
FBI
attempt to
guidelines
report
was
your
not
conduct to the
improper.
chain of command?
My conduct of the investigations was always always.
And we can see what that
proper,
was. Okay,
correct,
thank you. Reclaiming
and
my
guided by the-
time. And Mr. Chairman, my closing remarks I address to you. I don't have any further comment that I need or any other questions to be answered. FBI agents are required to adhere to strict standards of conduct and exemplify the FBI's core competencies, including communication, respect, leadership, and compassion, problem solving, judgment. The IG found that the use of official devices to send messages intermixing work-related discussions and political commentary demonstrated extremely poor judgment and gross lack of professionalism. The powers of government are drawn from the people's consent. The executive branch draws its law enforcement powers not only from that consent, but most importantly from the trust to wield such power without prejudice and with integrity. Mr. Chairman, we've heard a lot about ethics, patriotism, and service today. We are all accountable for our actions. I am mindful of the words of Christ in Luke, "You shall know a tree by its fruit. From the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." And I yield back my time to you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair, thanks.